Welcome to the Horus Audiobook channel. Don't forget to subscribe for more fascinating content.
For the servants of the star and the snake. Invocation. I was. Confirm my troth with thee. My will inspire with secret sperm of subtle, free, creating fire. Mold thou my very flesh as thine. Renew my birth in childhood merry as divine. Enchanted earth. Dissolve my rapture and think own. A sacred slaughter whereby to capture and atone the soul of water. Fill thou my mind with gleaming thought intense and rare to one refined, outfying to naught, the word of air, most, bridal bound, my quintessential form thus freeing from self, be found one skullfood blent in spirit being. Aleister Crowley. Introduction. This book contains a critical study of Aleister Crowley's system of sexual magic and its affinities with the ancient tantric rites of Kali, the dark goddess of blood and dissolution represented in Crowley's cult as the Scarlet Woman. It is an attempt to supply a key to the work of an adept whose vast knowledge of occultism was unsurpassed by any previous Western authority. I have emphasized the similarity between Crowley's cult of Thelema and Tantra because the present wave of interest in the tantric system makes it probable that readers will be able to assess more fully the importance of Crowley's contribution to occultism in general and to the magical path in particular. As a result of many years' research into obscure phases of occultism, I have evolved a method of dream control for contacting extra-terrestrial and non-human entities. This forms the substance of chapters 6 and 7. This method is described in relation to the mysteries of Kundalini, the supreme magical power symbolized by the sleeping fire snake at the base of the spine which, after its awakening, activates the subtle power zones in the human body. Aleister Crowley, Auschinger, Spare, Dion Fortune, and the German occultist Eugen Groschk were among the first adepts in the West to teach the use of the sexual energies, the Ophidian current that informed the most ancient arcana of Africa and the Far East. Although it was Crowley who first integrated this current with the Western esoteric tradition, this was not achieved without some doubtful interpretations of Oriental symbolism. This was inevitable because it was not until the last years of Crowley's life that certain secret knowledge pertaining to the Tantric Vama Marg made possible a fuller understanding of the Book of the Law, the ultimate repository of magical formulae, and the grimoire of the new aeon or era which it had inaugurated in 1904, when Crowley received and transmitted it. I have therefore endeavored to correct errors of interpretation in order to diminish the dangers naturally concomitant upon the use of this current. Chapter 10 summarizes information about a mystical tradition concerning the influx of cosmic energy from a transpyutonic power zone known to initiates as New Isis. The Book of the Law contains veiled references to this mystery for the transmission of which I once founded a dependent lodge of the O.2a. Constructive study of Crowley's magic unavoidably involves discussion of actual techniques. As this book is not designed as a manual of practical magic, the reader is cautioned against the very real danger of attempting to use any of the methods it describes. Although several chapters are based upon unpublished material by Crowley and Spare, care has been taken not to violate the obligation of discretion imposed upon members of arcane sanctuaries who possess the genuine keys of initiation. I owe a debt of gratitude to Frater Ani Abthilol, 9° OTO, who made available an invaluable contemporary Kaula comment on ancient tantric rites. I am also grateful to Crowley's literary executor, Mr. John Simons, for permission to quote from unpublished sources, and to my wife, for her constant help throughout. Finally, if the reader detects a dichotomy between the popular conception of Crowley's Inagic and the interpretation here given, which, with THC exception of the matter contained in Chapter 10, is based largely upon his own writings, the object of this book will have been achieved. I the one beyond 10 in 1893, at the age of 18, Aleister Crowley determined to put magic on a sound scientific basis. He explains that he adopted the Old English spelling, Renagic, in order to distinguish the science of the Magi from all its counterfeits. By this spelling, he also intended to indicate the peculiar nature of his teachings, which has a special affinity with the number 11, the one beyond 10. K, the last letter of magic, is the 11th letter of several major alphabets. To it is attributed to the god Jupiter, whose vehicle, the eagle, is symbolic of magic power in its feminine aspect. It is the symbol of that gigantic power whose color is scarlet and who has affinity with Capricorn or Babylon. The special import of Capricorn, the goat, is revealed by its attribution, in the Indian tradition, to the goddess Kali, whose vehicle is blood. K is also the ku, ko or q symbolized by the tail or vagina, venerated in ancient Egypt as the source of great magical power. Magic spelt with a K therefore indicates the precise nature of the current which Crowley embodied and transmitted. Because the number 10 was regarded by Kabbalists as the stable number of the system of divine emanations, or Sephiroth, the number 7 was considered accursed because it was outside the system. Thurion therefore adopted 11 as his formula. In the Book of the Law, the goddess Nut exclaims, "My number is 2, as all their numbers who are of us," which is a direct allusion to the A, or order of the silver star, and its system of grades. 4 Nut is the great outside, represented Kali as infinite space and the infinite stars thereof, i.e.
Isa.
Nut and Isis are thus identified in the Book of the Law. Isis is terrestrial space, illumined by the stars. Nut is outer, or infinite space, the undying darkness that is the hidden source of light. She is also, in a mystical sense, inner space and the great within. Crowley first became aware of the existence of a hierarchy of spiritual powers in 1898 when he read The Cloud Upon the Sanctuary by Karl von Eckartshausen. He was 22 at the time and in his third year at Cambridge. In the course of a review of The Cloud in the Equinox 5, Volume 3, Crowley wrote, "It was this book which first made me aware of the existence of a secret mystical assembly of saints and determined me to devote my whole life, without keeping back the least imaginable thing, to the purpose of making myself worthy to enter that circle." Although The Cloud Upon the Sanctuary was written in the language of Christian mysticism, the idea of a spiritual hierarchy at which it hints is not confined to Christianity. It is to be found also in the Buddhist system. In the line of mystical Hindu gurus that preceded the present Shankaracharya of Kangchi Kamakoti Pitham, in the spiritual Sampradaya, or lineage of Gorakhnath and the Nath Siddhas, and similar hierarchies. Whether the theory of Christian apostolic succession is true or not, whether the Dalai and Tashi Lamas of Tibet represent in truth a subtle lineage of invisible adepts is a moot point. Some sort of occult order undoubtedly controls the motions of stars and planets, and if stars and planets are governed in the infinitudes of space, why not also men and women in the finitudes of earth? For, as the Book of the Law expresses it, every man and every woman is a star. After Crowley read The Cloud Upon the Sanctuary, he aspired to contact the hidden order which the book describes. As a result of his endeavors, he met George Cecil Jones, Frater DDS, a member of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, whose head at that time was Samuel Liddell MacGregor Mathers. It was through DDS that Crowley was initiated into the Golden Dawn on November 1898. He assumed the magical name Perdurabo, I shall endure, a motto undoubtedly suggested by his acquaintance with biblical lore, inherited from his father, a fanatical Plymouth brother, and based upon Matthew 24 verse 13. Crowley extended it to mean, I shall endure to the end, for at the end is there naught to endure, perdurabo. This was no mere wordplay, but an adumbration of that total annihilation of personality which had to be accomplished if he were to achieve the summit of spiritual attainment, a supreme abolishment synonymous with an experience known as the ordeal of the abyss. 6 The Golden Dawn attracted people who were either dissatisfied with traditional, Christianized, Masonic teachings, or unwilling to accept Oriental concepts filtered through the brilliant, though not always flawless prism of Madame Blavatsky's Theosophical Society. One of the most outstanding members of the order, from Crowley's point of view, was Alan Bennett, Frater Lehigh. It was he who gave Crowley his grounding in Oriental mysticism. It was Bennett, also, who later became a Buddhist monk in Burma and who, instead of introducing Thelema to the East, as Crowley had hoped he would do, reversed the process and brought Buddhism to the West. Bennett was one of the original members of the Buddhist Sangha in England. Within a year of his initiation, Crowley's advance in the Golden Dawn had been so swift that he attained the highest grade which Mathers was entitled to confer and, According to an unpublished autobiographical note, 1924, by the year 1903 Crowley was the most advanced adept, as distinct from a master, in the world. But as at Cambridge, when he had undergone the Buddhist trance of sorrow and realized the futility of earthly ambition and achievement, so now, when almost at the summit of mystical attainment, he was overwhelmed by a similar sense of futility. It was so acute that he abandoned the great work ate itself. In August 1903, he married Rose Edith Kelly, who, within a year of their marriage, was instrumental in putting him in touch with an occult intelligence of incalculable power, one that was to remain with him to the end of his life. Through this intelligence, named Aiwass, Crowley received the Book of the Law in 1904. Among other things, the Golden Dawn taught a technique for acquiring mastery of the astral plane, during which the projected astral body of the magician was identified with an Egyptian god form. When practicing the assumption of a god form, Perdurabo, i.e., Crowley, chose the form of Horus, one of the oldest deities known to man. He sealed the plasm of his astral body in the mentally formulated image of a golden hawk, a vehicle of Horus, and in that form, he explored the subtle ethers of the universe. 9 The technique of assuming the god form, of ritually evoking and banishing astral, elemental, and planetary entities, forms the substance of Liber Zero Vet Mantis et Sagitti, a Golden Dawn instruction which Crowley later published in the Equinox, Volume
No.
2. See also Magic, by Aleister Crowley, Routledge, 1973. The Golden Dawn underwent great changes owing to the failure of Mathers to maintain a magical link with the occult current in forming the the Order of the Silver Star, and the subsequent dissolution of his contacts on the inner planes by the secret chiefs of the order. In a manifesto addressed to members of the Second Order, the Orders of the Rosy Cross and of the Cross of Gold, Mathers had given more than a hint as to what this contact implied. As to the secret chiefs with whom I am in touch and from whom I have received the wisdom of the Second Order which I communicated to you, I can tell you nothing. I do not even know their earthly names, and I have very seldom seen them in their physical bodies. They used to meet me physically at a time and place fixed in advance. For my part, I believe they are human beings living on this earth, but possessed of terrible and superhuman powers. My physical encounters with them have shown me how difficult it is for a mortal, however advanced, to support their presence. I do not mean that during my rare meetings with them I experienced the same feeling of intense physical depression that accompanies the loss of magnetism. On the contrary, I felt I was in contact with a force so terrible that I can only compare it to the shock one would receive from being near a flash of lightning during a great thunder storm, experiencing at the same time great difficulty in breathing. The nervous prostration I spoke of was accompanied by cold sweats and bleeding from the nose, mouth, and sometimes the ears. This may suggest quackery, or even theosophy, but the fact remains that Perdurabo succeeded where Mathers had failed. Through proper application of the magical methods taught by Mathers, Perdurabo was able to pitch his consciousness into reciprocal harmony with what proved to be an indubitably powerful intelligence. By repeatedly assuming the god form of Horus, Crowley attuned his consciousness to the vibrations emanating from the sphere of that complex of cosmic power. In this way, he prepared himself to receive the Book of the Law, technically entitled Liber Al Vel Legis. This book will be referred to hereafter simply as Al. Al, pronounced El, is a Chaldean word meaning, among other things, God or the Great One. It possesses elemental and planetary attributes, air, to the letter A, and Venus, to the letter L. A signifies the creative spirit, breath, prana, etc., and L signifies the woman satisfied, or fulfilled with creative energy. The relevant tarotic keys are entitled the Fool and Adjustment, respectively. The inner meaning of these keys will emerge in due course. Al was transmitted to Crowley by a discarnate intelligence named Aiwass in 1904, for an hour precisely, from noon till 1 o'clock p.m. On April 8, 9 and Io, while Crowley was in Cairo, Aiwass dictated the substance of the book which forms the most important magical document of the new Aeon. A full account of the transaction is given by Crowley in his Confessions, and, in more technical detail, in the Equinox of the Gods. The secret chiefs not only authorized Perdurabo to supplant Mathers as head of the Golden Dawn, They also made it clear that he was specially chosen to establish a new epoch in the evolution of consciousness on this planet, over which the god Horus will preside for the next 2,000 years. Changes of Aeon occur periodically at intervals of about 2,000 years, the most recent having occurred in 1904 when Horus supplanted Osiris as the typical vehicle of the magical current that now infuses the aura of the planet. Aiwass, or Aiwaz as it is sometimes spelt, B0 claims to be the minister of Hor, Par Krat, a form of one Taurus, more generally known as Set or Shaitan. The 3 chapters of Al are a manifestation in speech of the god of silence, Hor Par Krat. 2Al approximates in some important respects to the Far Eastern Tantras in that it is cast in the form of a teaching imparted by a god to his Sakti, vehicle of power. In this particular case, Aiwass to Perdurabo, who is described in Al as the chosen priest, the apostle of infinite space. The prince, priest the beast. This description of the chosen priest must have struck Crowley forcibly, for in his teens he had had a vivid inner experience which he described as a passionate sense of identity with the Beast 666. The Beast 666 is the dragon with 7 heads mentioned in Revelation. Its occult significance shows in what manner the number 666 is the number of a man, for the 7 heads represent the 7 stations of the pole star, each of which fell, or sank down, at vast periodic intervals, the entire process taking 26,000 years to complete. This constitutes one great year in the cycle of precession. The symbolism is astronomical as well as mystical. The 7 heads of the beast were typified by various images that had their earthly prototypes as symbols of magical power. The sinking and final disappearance of the 6th head made way for that of a man, i.e., a star represented by the first human image ever constellated in the heavens, the sign of Hiru, Horus, the hero or Hercules of the later Greek astro mythology. The image of the beast, dragon, or 7-headed serpent, formed the basal design on the floor of the vault of the adepts in the Golden Dawn. To each head was assigned a name of the qliphothic or demonic force, the number of which is 11. Another affinity between Al and the Tantras is that the Tantras are accepted, not because of their antiquity alone, but because of the proven superhuman authority of their origin. There are other similarities to the Tantras, but also one great dissimilarity in that the Tantrics, especially of the Sakta division, avoid all use of the number 11 because it is considered inauspicious. 5. This number, which plays a major role in Crowley's cult, has been adversely commented upon by Dion Fortune. Crowley's Magic 6 is valuable to the student, but only the advanced student could use it with profit. The formulae, too, on which he works, would be considered averse and kvi by occultists accustomed to the Kabbalistic tradition, for he uses 2 instead of Io as the basis of his battery of Nox in the magical Kirkmonies, and 2 is the number of the qliphothic. No hint of this is given in the text, and it is an ugly trap for the unwary student. Point 17. It is true that 11 is the number of the qliphothic, the unbalanced residue cast off by, and therefore outside, the 10 Sephiroth. But man has to triumph over these unbalanced forces in his own nature before he can become a master magician. In order to do this, he first has to evoke the qliphothic, which he does by formulating the averse pentagram, the Star of Set. After he has established his magical supremacy by balancing within himself the 5 elements represented by the upright pentagram, the Star of Nut. The magician is himself the 11th, because he is forever outside and beyond the operation of the 10, i.e., the 2 pentagrams. Similarly, the beast with 7 heads achieves his apotheosis in the 8-fold power named Baphomet, the glyph of the androgyne which conceals the secret formula of change through sexual polarity in human form. This is the formula of sexual magic based on atavistic resurgence. See Chapter 8. Crowley, who always maintained a positive attitude, considered also the equally important fact that 11 is the number of the path of Aleph on the Tree of Life, the path that transmits the light of Kether, the Father, to Typhoreth, the Son. This path symbolizes the transmission of the supernal light to the Magus, Chakma, by the formula of divine madness. Aleph, the Fool of the Tarot, is also the Mad One. The path of Aleph is the path of wisdom or folly. Aleph spelt in full, R, totals 3, 11 on the grand scale. In the Book of Thoth, the letter A is ascribed to the first key, the Fool, the Mad One, and the serial number of this key is 0. We here reach the root of Crowley's key formula. 0 is equal to 2, which is also an ancient Chinese formula. 18 The sum of unity, I, and its reflection, also I, symbolized by the number II, is the dyad, the mystic number of woman, the divider into two, i.e., as mother and child. To woman is ascribed the letter Beth, which means the house or womb. 2 is its number. Hence 11, the dynamic form of 2, is the number of that magic which uses the sexual forces and the woman to recreate the illusion of the universe. The secret seal of the A is an 11-fold star, again, the one beyond 10. The word of the law announced by Iwas is Tulzil, Na, will, and it is expressed in Al in the 11-worded precept, do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. There are 11 lines on the reverse side of the stele of Re Teliag, which is the magical talisman of the present Aeon of Horus, and Crowley became a Magus 9 degree equals 2A, with the motto to Mega their Ion, the great beast, 11 years after he received Al from Iwas. The magic of the Aeon of Horus consists in the realization of the identity of Kether, Nut, and Moketh, Hadit. The numbers of these Sephiroth are I and 10 respectively. Their union in the consciousness of the magician produces Typhoreth, the sun, Horus, the lord of the Aeon. The magical formula of the great work, which is the process of uniting these two in consciousness, is Abrahadabra, the 11-lettered word of power. In the Cephalidium working, unpublished, Crowley describes the fortress, or house of Horus, the house of God mentioned in Al, as the Aeon of 11 towers. In view of Crowley's references to the worship of Shaitan as being equivalent to the worship of Had, or Hadit, it is interesting to compare the 11 temples connected with the sect of Shaitan, devotees still existing in the Syrian desert in the neighborhood of Baghdad. 20 Crowley's magical title in the OTO was Baphomet, the eightfold name, Octonomos, the master magician. Baphomet is also 11-fold, as revealed by the Baphometic cross. It symbolizes not only the 11 Sephiroth, i.e., the 10 Sephiroth plus Dath, but also the one beyond 10 that pervades the system from outside, Nut. The formula of force is 11 in 1 and 1 in 11, that is 418. 21 This means that Abrahadabra, the numerical value of which is 418, the number of the great work, is one word consisting of 11 letters, therefore 11 in 1. Ahad, the center or heart of Abrahadabra, is Hadit or Shaitan. It is also the Chaldean word signifying one, unity, thus 1 in 11. The magical theories which underlie the formula of the assumption of God forms are of vital importance to an understanding of Crowley's later refinement and rehabilitation of them. The masquerading as animal-headed deities, the wearing of pelts, horns, skins, bestial organs, etc., was done with intent to assimilate the superhuman powers possessed by certain animals. This formula, which was used by the sorcerers of the ancient world, had a profound effect upon the psychology of the operator. Because man evolved from the beasts, he possesses, deeply buried in his subconsciousness, the memories of superhuman powers he once possessed. Each animal typifies one or more such powers: strength and subtlety for the leopard, seeing or sensing in darkness for the cat, the OWI, the bat, swift death, dealing power for the snake, the power of transformation for the hyena, and so on. Any required atavism could be evoked by assumption of the appropriate God form. 22 The process was known to initiates as the formula of the divine ape, the ape being an image of the primal link between man and beast. It was also a symbol of the astral body and the reflective quality of the astral light that appears to mimic or ape the images impressed upon it by the will of the magician. The assumption of the God form is therefore an aping of the superhuman power which it is desired to evoke. In a paper on clairvoyance, MacGregor Mathers noted that the specific forms of animals are significant even on the mundane plane, and that on the astral plane this is even more emphatically the case. In the case of the ape, the formula was actually enacted in a sexual rite that Crowley refers to in his comment on the vision, and the voice. 23 Classical mythology is replete with examples of the sexual assumption of the God form. Zeus enjoyed Europa as a bull, Leda as a swan, Astery as an eagle, and Diois as a speckled serpent. Poseidon, as a bull, seduced Arn, as a ram, Theophane. Kronos, as a horse, covered Philyra and begot the centaur Chiron, etc. There is also the biblical mystery of Mary and the dove. Crowley interprets the formula as a magical unification of larval consciousness, characteristic of pre-human phases of life, with the ultimate product of an exalted and illumined human will. The exaltation of pre-eval atavisms to cosmic consciousness through the instrumentality of sexual magic. The Sphinx is the most celebrated image of this concept. Crowley describes it as the deification of the bestial, and therefore an apt hieroglyph of the Magneto Opus. 24. In other words, it symbolizes the formula for the bringing through of cosmic power, the meeting of beast and god through the mediumship of man. The use of ritual masks, more particularly those of the ancient Egyptian gods, a falcon for Horus, a jackal or fennec fox for Anubis, an ibis or ape for Thoth, a crocodile, dragon or ass for Set, and hippopotamus for Typhon, was a means of identification with subconscious strata corresponding to remote atavisms. The law of evolution is retrogression of function governing progression of attainment, i.e., the more wonderful our attainments, the lower in the scale of life the function that governs them. 25. The subconsciousness responds to properly applied magical theurgy, in some cases, even to brain surgery. Walter Penfield's work has shown that during brain operations, stimulation of the temporal lobe of the brain may actually reproduce a sense of the full experience of a past memory, as if it were occurring again. This was discovered when epileptic patients were treated surgically. 26. It is clear from the nature of some of the Golden Dawn instructions that its chiefs were fully aware of the occult significance of animals in ancient arcane traditions. In an abstract of one such teaching, Perdurabo notes that monkeys, for instance, are the debased result of ancient magical effort to form a direct link with animals, i.e., with the pre-human strata of consciousness, those strata which contain superhuman energies in latent form. In Magic Without Tears, 27. Crowley notes that in certain types of animal, there appears, if tradition have any weight, to be a curious quality, which enables them to assume at times the human form.
No.
And the rest are also Rands, is the seal. There is a whole body of literature about this. Then come wolves, hyenas, large dogs of the hunting type, occasionally leopards. Tails of cats and serpents are usually the other way round. It is the human, nearly always female, that assumes these shapes by witchcraft. But in ancient Egypt, the papyri are full of formulas for operating such transformations. The magicians of antiquity were deeply versed in this and allied formulae. By the assumption of the form or nature of the deity, they made themselves the vehicles of the elemental energy typified by the god. It was Crowley's frequent assumption of the god, form of Horus, as a golden hawk, that enabled him to invoke the magical energies of the new aeon which lay latent in the racial subconsciousness in the form of animal atavisms. Animals were the first sentient forms of the primal current of consciousness that proceeded from an extra-terrestrial source. They were, in fact, the primal forms of cosmic energies or gods, their literal god forms, and the later assumption of these forms by man was a magical means of contacting the stream of consciousness that first penetrated this planet from outside. Aiwass is the link, the corridor through which the impulse was transmitted from the source of extra-terrestrial consciousness. That is, Aiwass was a messenger from the forces ruling this earth at present. 28. The location of that source and the nature of those forces, or gods, are mysteries concealed in Al. Rather than originating with Crowley, this impulse included and comprehended him in its sweep. Aiwass is both a subjective and individualized concept and an objective and cosmic entity. This explains how Aiwass is simultaneously a part of Crowley's subliminal consciousness and an independent entity identified with cosmic energy. From the time Crowley entered the Golden Dawn in 1898 to the receipt of Al in 1904 and for several years afterwards, sex had had for him no particular occult significance. He used it in the normal course of events. His casual use of it, however, during his period of magical training explains his rapid progress in the order. The effects of the formula of the divine ape, augmented by the use of sex in his personal life, mysteriously released the serpent power, Kundalini, within him. Yet it was many years before Crowley acknowledged Aiwass as a being identical with his daemon, his genius, or holy guardian angel. Aiwass, the minister of Hoer, Par, Krat, therefore equates with the solar, phallic, hermetic Lucifer, the devil, Satan, or Hadad of our particular unit of the starry universe. This serpent, Satan, is not the enemy of man, but he who made gods of our race, knowing good and evil. He bade, "Know thyself," and taught initiation. 29. Furthermore, Crowley typifies the true nature in every man and woman, the true will, by the Satyr, 3 degree of form of Saturn or Set, Shaitan Aiwass, the hidden god. 2. The Scarlet Woman I, the Beast 666, am called to show this worship and to send it forth into the world. By my woman called the Scarlet Woman, who is any woman that receives and transmits my solar word and being, is this my work achieved. For without woman man hath no power. The Jeridensis working Chapter 11 of Crowley's Magic, original edition, is entitled Of Our Lady Babylon and of the Beast whereon she rideth. It begins, "The contents of this section, inasmuch as they concern Our Lady, are too important and too sacred to be printed. They are only communicated by the master thereon to chosen pupils in private instruction. It is not claimed that the contents of the present chapter constitute the private instruction mentioned in Magic, but the following interpretation of the formula of the Scarlet Woman is based upon a study of unpublished material which possibly formed the basis of such instruction. The adjective scarlet has reference to the draconian current upon which the new aeon is based, for it is the color of Aries, Horus, or Horus. Aries in the zodiac also represents the green man, the vernal power of the sun. Scarlet is the color of the flame which initiates the annual vernal current that avenges itself upon the drought and darkness of the winter months. In another sense, scarlet equates with the red substance of female source, the prime menstruum of magical energy, and also with the negatory, destructive aspect of lunar or black magic and witchcraft. It is in this sense that the Scarlet Woman equates with Kali, who is primarily the goddess of stellar and lunar periods, hence of time. One of the first methods of telling time was by the periodic emanations of the female cynocephaly, which the ancient Egyptian priests used for this purpose. Point 2 time is the menstruum in which all material forms arise, transform, and finally dissolve. The best blood is of the moon, monthly, says A.L. This refers particularly to the Kali aspect of the formula. Best, that is, for works of dissolution or transmutation. Best, in other words, for magic or energy tending to change. The name Babylon, which is used to designate the office of Scarlet Woman, differs from the apocalyptic version not only in respect of its orthography 3, but also for the following reasons. The biblical concept of the Scarlet Woman is already a corruption of that ancient magical tradition of which, outside sanctuaries of initiation, temple prostitution is the only remembered form. The tradition is best preserved in the doctrines of the Indian and Tibetan Tantras, which describe ceremonies involving the use of the kalas, medicines, which imbue the exudations of specially trained priestesses. The sweet, smelling ladies, Suvasinis, have a more than literary correlation to the sweet, smelling perfume of sweat spoken of in A.L.I. 27. The formula of the Scarlet Woman is the formula of the Suvasini. Babylon means the gate of the sun. She admits the solar force through her gate, gut, cut, or cat, i.e., pudenda. As the cat she is the moon, or the sun reflected in the eye of Aminta, the left eye of space as the sun is the right. Thus the Vama Marg, literally the left path or the path involving the use of woman, the female being considered as the left or lunar aspect of creation in contradistinction to the Dakshina Marg, which involves the solar current, the male or right hand aspect. In another sense, Vama Marg is the esoteric aspect of Tantra, of which the exoteric aspect is the Daxil, Ina Marg. These distinctions have nothing whatever to do with white and black magic, as often and erroneously supposed. The name Babylon is numerically equivalent to I6, whereas the corrupt, apocalyptic form, Babylon, totals 165, a number of no particular Kabbalistic significance. 1, 5, 6, on the other hand, conceals many ideas relating to the function of the Scarlet Woman. For instance, it is the number of Tzivn, Zion, the holy mountain. It is also the number of the city of the pyramids beneath the night of Pan, for which may be entered and explored through the magical use of Babylon. It is also, according to Liber 4i8, the number of chaos, which is a concept of singular importance in the Kabbalah of Thelema, for it is a secret name of the beast. Babylon is thus identified with her true lord. Another important correspondence with the number 156 is San Ru, a term used by the ancient Egyptians to denote the day of the summer solstice, when the eye of Horus, i.e., the moon, was full and the year completed. The number 156 is therefore a perfect symbol of the magically inspired female, i.e., of the Scarlet Woman. It is also her numerical formula, which is one of change and manifestation, Scorpio and Capricorn. The apprehension of the interchangeability of these symbols requires the use of a special kind of mental faculty, one which is capable of simultaneously distinguishing and identifying apparently disparate concepts. The disparity exists only in relation to the mentality which conceives it. Once this is grasped, initiation becomes possible and the mind transcends itself by means of the reconciliation of opposites. The Visvakosa Tantra says, "No worship is valid without women, sakti, fish, and meat." Similarly, a Sahajiya text declares, "If you do not submit yourself to a manjari, woman, but simply rely on theoretical knowledge of the thing, you cannot get Krishna by spiritual culture." According to Munindra Bose, 6, the Sahajiyas do not use fish or meat in mystic culture, but as regards the necessity of women, they have the same idea of the utility of a female companion as preached in the Tantras. An initiated tantric comment on the Vama Marg describes the Suvasinis as sweet, smelling ladies, selected to play the role of mother. They are to be sought as the one and only refuge. And even though as many as 16 ladies are chosen in one of the rarer forms of magic that appertain to this school of worship, the chief focal point is the woman, the one and only who is the Suvasini. Crowley was working the same formula and he explained the mechanics of it in his magical record. The formula of the Aeon, 418, is not, as one might have expected, of Horus, but of Chetli, the chariot, a formula of going. It is the house of the moon, body of change. This balances the solar 666, he is ever a sun, and she a moon, Ali, 16. The Scarlet Woman is therefore lunar. I am the white, and she is the red, of alchemical perfection. And my failure has been due to lack of her, in whom is all power given. I have achieved my own private initiation quite nicely and nimbly, but I have not been able to manifest in power for lack of her. Crowley then enumerates several Scarlet Women who had assisted him during major magical workings. The seer Warda, i.e., his wife, Rose Kelly, candidate No. I, gave him the power to get the book of the law. Viracum, Mary D.S. Sturges, No. 2, gave me book 4, in part, but broke down, surely through my own default of faith in her, more than her quite justified distrust of me. We neither of us gave ourselves wholly without reservation to the work. Third, Sora Hilarion, Jean Foster, gave me the child of promise, i.e., Frater Akkad, Crowley's magical son, and probably helped me to attain my grade of magus. Fourth, Sar Ahitha, Roddy Minor, helped to build the Temple of Jupiter. I may not yet appreciate the effect of this, but if, on the whole, the work was marred as appears on the Surfac, I must again blame myself for my imperfect non-attachment. I feel sure that I was always upsetting the gods' plans by obtruding my own rational ideas of the proper way to do things. Fifth, Almira Bertha Bruce, whose vocation I cannot doubt, seems to have failed altogether, unless she gave me that very non-attachment I so needed. But I cannot make out whether she is still in office. Warda was fire, of the Archer, i.e., Sagittarius, so was Hilarion. Viracum was air, of the Balance, i.e., Libra. Ahitha, fire and earth of Ram, Aries, and Bull Taurus. Almira, air of the Twins, Jernanich. And in his full comment to A.L., Crowley supplies more information about the nature of these Scarlet Women. I, Rose Edith Crowley née Kelly, my wife, put me in touch with Iwas. See the Equinox, I, 7. The Temple of Solomon the King. Failed as elsewhere is on record. 2. A doubtful case.
Marie d'Est Sturge Nedemse.
Put me in touch with Aboldes, hence helped with Book 4. Failed from personal jealousies. 3.
Jeanne Robert Foster née Olivier.
Bore the child, to whom AL refers. Failed from respectability. 4. Roddy Minor. Brought in touch with Annie Elantra. Failed from indifference to the work. A doubtful case.
Marie Rowling née Lavrov.
Helped to inspire Liber CXI. Failed from indecision. 6. A doubtful case.
Bertha Almera Prikril née Bruce.
Delayed assumption of duties, hence made way for number 7. 7. Leah Hersig Alastriel, the Ape of Thoth, assisted me in actual initiation. 8. Still at my side, 1921. P.S. An I-923. It is necessary at this stage to explain the actual formula and function of the Scarlet Woman, and the use of the occult vibrations that she emanates. In Tantric literature, the Suvasini is a priestess, in the sense that she is the chosen vehicle of the supreme goddess, or magical power, Mahashakti. Her body contains zones of occult energy intimately related to the network of nerves and plexuses associated with the endocrine glands. As the supreme goddess, she is represented Yantrakalaibo by the Shri Chakra, see Plate S, and Mantrakalaibo by the secret vibrations that invoke the primal creative energy in its lunar, or feminine, form, i.e., in a form specially suited to manifestation. Her Anantra has never been written down because it can be transmitted only orally. The Shri Chakra is therefore the signature of the Scarlet Woman, insofar as it delineates the formula of the goddess, whether of Nut, Isis, Kali, etc., makes no difference. When the great magical power, Kundalini, is roused to activity, it energizes the chakras in the body of the Scarlet Woman, generating vibrations that influence the chemical composition of her glandular secretions. After appropriating the amrit, nectar, precipitated at any given chakra, these vibrations inform the fluids which flow from the genital outlet. The fragrances emanating from each chakra are thus made available for use by the priest, or beast, HL, who devours them and transmutes them into ajas, magical energy. There are 3 main methods of obtaining these vaginal vibrations, or kalas. One of them is of particular interest to Thelemites because it is equivalent to the ancient Egyptian formula of Nut, the goddess of the night sky, represented anthropomorphically by a naked woman arched over the earth. 12 in the Tantras. This posture is called the Kailasa Prasthara. The goddess towers over her worshippers like Mount Kaiwan, from which the healing kolth of her snows flows down. The earlier image of this formula, as depicted on the stele of Ankf Nakansu, shows a woman on all fours, which suggests the Viparita Nyathuna, a back-to-front mode of congress described in some of the earliest tantras and in certain occult writings of the Arabs. Viparita Maithuna is also symbolic of the total reversion of the senses necessary to the full awakening of the serpent power. Ankf Nakansu, a priest of Amin Ra during the XXVth dynasty, was a previous avatar of the Rayan, the beast. Kansu, meaning literally, the traveler of the night sky, not only denotes the moon but also the stars or kalas that accompany the moon in its nocturnal or feminine phase. For Ankf Nakansu concentrated within himself the life or vital energy, Ank, of the Afna, moon, Kansu, the moon being the Shri Chakra, light as the medium of manifestation.
The Shri Chakra is the moon in its fullness, the lotus in full flower, the flower which in the graded phases of its cycle emanates 14 rays, 1 for each day of the fortnight, that culminate in the full circle of the 15th. A circle has 360 degrees, and the Shri Chakra is such a circle. It has been equated, by some commentators, with the circle of the year of 365 days, the 5 missing days being disregarded because inexplicable to the uninitiated. But when the physiological formula of the Scarlet Woman is understood, it is seen that these 5 days represent the 5 negative days of her occultation every moon or month, which is the periodic cycle or full circle of the human female. The 15 grades or steps of this progression from newness to fullness, virginity to motherhood, were intimately related to the monthly pulse of the woman chosen for the secret rites of the Kaula or Kala circle, which is the genuine Vama Marg or path of the supreme goddess. Particular deities were ascribed to the days and nights of the dark and bright fortnights which constituted the full month or moon. The dark fortnight comprised the period from full to new moon, the bright fortnight from new to full moon. These 15 grades were conceived as rays has its roots. The true will remains eternally inviolate in its hidden sanctuary of interior being. Thus, in the Aeon of Osiris, genius was a comparatively rare phenomenon. So much so that some official scientists actually treated it as a pathology. Crowley realized that genius should be the rule, not the exception. He maintained that by systematic training he could unveil or invoke the genius of any individual. Crowley demonstrated this claim by awakening the genius of people who would probably not otherwise have manifested it at all, at least in such an enhanced form. Victor Newberg, the poet, Norman Mudd, mathematician, Nanette Shumway, a member of his abbey in Cefalu whose magical record contained passages which Crowley claimed to be equal to some of the Pfingsten literature. Charles Stansfeld Jones, Crowley's magical son and a great Kabbalist. Frank Bennett, a working man who received intimations of a previous incarnation when he had been John Bunyan, and who produced a record of visions in a style worthy of that avatar. Layla Waddell, a musician. Frida Harris, who carried out the designs for the new tarot pack conceived by Crowley in accordance with the magic of Thelema, etc. These individuals exhibited traces of potential genius while in contact with Crowley and the 93 current. The artist, the occultist, the scientist were among those who refused to conform to priestly superstitions. Even today, these sections of society are regarded with suspicion, if not with animosity, as a danger to society. People sensed in the artist, the magician, the alchemist, some undefinable yet potent quality that was inimical to their comfortable vegetative existence. The danger lingers on. The scientist Wilhelm Reich was eliminated by the American authorities because the logical conclusion of his discoveries implied the total overthrow of society as it is known today. Yet it is upon the debris of that society alone that the kingdom of Are-Horquit may be established and Liber as put into practice. The keen and persistent practice of Thelema by even a few dedicated individuals will effectually overthrow society and thereby facilitate the unhindered development of the new aeon and the reintegration of human consciousness.